All right, welcome everyone. Okay, let's dive into this because today we are unpacking a highly frustrating, deeply universal experience that, let's be honest, almost every single one of us has gone through at some point. Have you ever been in an argument and the other person finally looks at you and says the magic words, I am sorry, and yet nothing changes? The words are technically perfect. They hit all the right notes, and yet you're just left sitting there with your arms crossed, feeling completely unresolved. You're still on edge, and you're wondering why you just can't let it go. Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly why that happens. So, it's a massive question, isn't it? Why doesn't I'm sorry always work? We're taught right from childhood that an apology is basically the ultimate finish line of any conflict. But as adults, we constantly run into this baffling roadblock. And when that happens, you might actually start questioning yourself, wondering if you're just holding a grudge or if you're being, overly difficult. But I want to validate those confusing emotional experiences right here and right now. We are going to decode the hidden biological reason behind that lingering tension you feel. Spoiler alert, it is not a flaw in your personality. It's actually a biological response. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that word correct. Think about that. You see, an apology can be absolutely textbook perfect. It can hit every single note, and yet it can completely fail to calm your nervous system. This tells us something absolutely monumental. The conflict isn't just a communication error happening in the space between two people. No, it is a very real, very physical reaction happening right inside your own body. Your nervous system is basically acting as a highly trained protective security guard. And right now, that guard is flat out refusing to open the gates no matter how polite the apology standing outside might be. Let's move to section 1, the nervous system, intellectual acceptance versus physical reality. And this brilliantly illustrates the underlying biological mechanism driving this psychological paradox. We really have to look at the split happening inside of you. On one side, we have intellectual acceptance. Your partner says, I'm sorry I snapped at you, and your logical brain processes the language. Intellectually, you check the box. You know the other person is yielded. But on the other side, your physical reality. Despite that intellectual checkmark, your shoulders are still creeping up to your ears, you feel emotionally distant, and you remain entirely unconvinced. You are essentially a house divided. Your mind has moved on, sure, but your body is literally still braced for an impact. So why does that happen? Well, it's because your brain still cannot detect safety. It really is that simple. When the correct words arrive but the tension remains, it's just because your brain's absolute primary objective, which is safety, has not been met yet. Your brain is running this highly advanced survival mechanism in the background. It doesn't care about manners, it doesn't care about social scripts, it only cares about whether or not it is safe to be vulnerable again. And hearing a few words, that doesn't magically flip the safety switch in the deepest, most ancient parts of your brain. Listen, I want to tell you something very, very important, and I really want you to let this sink in. You are not impossible to satisfy. When you're sitting there after an apology still feeling upset, the other person might get frustrated, right? They might sigh and say, well, I said I'm sorry, what else do you want from me? That awkward stare down can make you feel a bit crazy or like you're being overly demanding. But I am here to tell you, based entirely on the research, that this lingering tension does not mean you're impossible to please. It simply means your body's security system is doing its job exactly the way it's supposed to. Which brings us to section 2, evidence of real repair, what the brain actually needs. Let's move to and see how this builds into the actual solution. Because your nervous system is a total skeptic, it needs solid ID, real evidence, before it unlocks the doors. Specifically, it needs 3 pieces of evidence. First, evidence that your pain was truly understood. Not just kind of acknowledged, but truly, deeply understood. Second, evidence that the pattern will actually change. Because let's face it, an apology without changed behavior is just a delay to the next argument. And third, safety. Proof that if you let this person back in, you aren't going to get hurt the exact same way tomorrow. Your brain is essentially asking, if I lower my guard, is closeness going to immediately become danger again? These are the mandatory, absolute requirements for real repair. If you skip those steps, you hit a brick wall. Without those specific signals of understanding, pattern change, and proven safety, the body stays partially guarded. The security guard simply does not stand down. You can force yourself to smile, you can wave it off and say, it's fine, I forgive you, but your posture will be rigid, your tone will be clipped, and your emotional walls will remain stubbornly high. The body keeps the score, and without those specific signals, the body absolutely refuses to play along. All right, section 3, verbal versus embodied safety, the paradigm shift. So the crucial point is this concept right here, embodied safety. This entirely shifts how we approach conflict. We're moving away from purely verbal exchanges, just talking things out, and we're recognizing the absolute necessity of a physical process. Embodied safety is the physiological state where your brain deeply registers that closeness is no longer a danger. Notice how we are talking about a physiological state here, not a psychological one. It is fundamentally distinct from mere verbal repair. Think of it this way. Verbal repair happens in the air, but embodied safety, that happens in your cells. When we reframe relationship repair around achieving embodied safety, rather than just extracting a verbal apology, literally everything changes. And that is precisely why this matters so much. Understanding the difference between verbal repair and embodied safety completely changes how people repair relationships. It's a real game changer. It takes all the pressure off of finding the quote-unquote perfect words and puts the focus on creating a secure, supportive environment. It allows us to be patient with ourselves when we don't feel better immediately. And maybe more importantly, it guides us on how to actually reassure our partners when we are the ones who have messed up. It completely revolutionizes conflict resolution from a simple transaction of words into this deeply empowering process of mutual healing. So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Next time you apologize to someone you care about, are you just offering words or are you offering safety? Are you just trying to get out of trouble in the moment, or are you providing the hard evidence their nervous system desperately needs to finally let you back in? Really keep that in mind the next time you find yourself in a conflict. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I genuinely hope this gives you a powerful new tool for your own relationships.